When we think that the world is ending, fires and flames come to life in our eyes. Chaos, noise and destruction seems fiction. However, there is a place on this planet that gives the impression that the apocalypse has already happened. This place is not defined by fire, but by a fascinating and absolute silence that makes you tremble. This place is Antarctica. From the human point of view, Antarctica evokes a feeling of emptiness. Europe and hunting are a white surface with unclear borders stretching from horizon to horizon. This ice-covered continent, which is even larger than Australia combined, stands alone at the bottom of the world. The movement is leaky, it is as if it is lifeless, as if time has completely stopped there. It has stopped, but this calmness does not reflect reality. Ice is not a cover. It is a curtain itself, and as much as what we see on Earth behind that frozen curtain. A world as complex, destructive and enigmatic as follows. Find active volcanoes spewing smoke in the darkness. There are lakes flowing upwards that have never met sunlight for 15 million years. There are more chains the size of flowing rivers and Alps, completely hidden from view. And deep within the rocks are the secrets of our past and perhaps our future. A spooky map lurks tonight in white. We will look for the white veil that will go deep into a frozen tomb and hide under it. We'll uncover liking the video before you start and creating the channel. A brief moment to subscribe to the channel. Of course, if you really enjoy what I have shared here, come late. Let's enter the journey of the night together with calm steps. Antarctica is the highest, dreariest, coldest and windiest continent on Earth. That fact is not a thin layer covering the ice surface here. On a geological scale, a load is a gigantic pressure of the ice cover on average. Its thickness exceeds 2 kilometers, and in the deepest basins it goes down to almost 5 kilometers. This depth is even higher than the height of many mountains on other continents. 34. This enormous ice mass, formed by the accumulation of snow that has fallen for 340,000 years, is extremely heavy, so much so that it physically suppressed and crushed the continent under it. The sheer weight of the ice sheet is hundreds of that of Antarctica's bedrock. If the mantle of the world has appeared, this ice. If you suddenly disappeared today, the land would start to rise again. However, it would take 10,000 years for it to regain its former balance. This process is called isostatic collapse. Continent that literally covers it. It is subdued to the pressure of water, but the ice is not only heavy. It's also extremely. In another sense, a crime is dead air trapped in the deepest layers. Layers are almost a fossilized atmosphere from the past. The dust locked in it is the result of ancient volcanic eruptions and meteorite collisions. Traces. Walking on the surface of the Antarctic plateau is a frozen one that hides the history of the Earth. It is like moving through an archive. The ground is solid, it does not move, and the end. It gives the feeling of eternity, but as we will notice shortly, it is ice solid and an immobile mass. It is a fluid, it moves, it flows, and from time to time giants wake up. The biggest illusion created by Antarctica is stagnant. However, we think of ice as an immutable structure locked in place forever. He is alive and awakens from time to time in order to grasp the true extent of this movement. To know, we only need to look at a single gigantic formation known by the name Atuthria. The world's largest iceberg consists of about 1 trillion tons of frozen water. It is a real titan that is formed. its surface area is about 4,000 square kilometers. It is larger than the state of Rhode Island and almost twice as wide as Greater London. For decades, when this giant was in a deep sleep. In 1986, the cranes were cut off from Rana Bursa in. Moreover, while the Cold War was still going on, it only drifted freely. The huge mass of ice below the surface hit the seafloor and sit there. For more than 30 years, he did not move while the world changed and transformed around him. It remained an ice island, but the balances changed in 2020. Maybe the water has warmed up a little more, or the rock mass underneath has moved. Atu-3 was now free and put on the move, today this trillion tons. To the north under the influence of the ton-ghost ocean currents. Alleviate heading towards the South Orkney Islands in slow motion towards warmer waters. This situation is heading towards its inevitable destiny like the homeland in Antarctica. It reminds us that even the view is not permanent. The land you step on may be a sea that you will sail over tomorrow. Its physical presence creates a reality that the mind has difficulty grasping. In some areas, we are talking about frozen water layers more than 4 kilometers deep. It's not just a cover, it's a lid that seals everything. It isolates the uncle from the atmosphere, sunlight, and the flow of time. Under this overwhelming pressure, the laws of physics begin to change. The pressure under the ice sheet is so intense that it increases the melting point of water. It pulls down the bottom part where the ice comes into contact with the bedrock is wet pressure. It melts the ice from the bottom, creating a hidden and slippery layer of the ice sheet. Not all of them stand on rocks, but on a microscopic film of water. This slippery interface almost floats to the flow of ice, breaking away from the continent. Barack allows it to slide towards the sea in 1964 SAO. While Soviet researchers tow their seismic equipment across the endless white plains. In their measurements, they noticed a strange sound, the sound they pierced the ice and sent down. Sound waves normally return irregularly to the pure of buried bedrock. It reflected its rough and rugged nature, but close to the Arctic cold. Signal change in a large and specific region. Return. Defect. For many years, it was almost impossibly flat, an anoma. Treated as a simple measurement error. However, in 1973, British American and Danish teams. When he made radar scans from the air, the picture became clear, the radar pierced the ice sheet. And this water revealed a border that looked smooth like the surface of a mirror. Reflection of water. A liquid horizon stretched out under the 4-kilometer-thick solid ice. The world does not look into a frozen void. See a sea hidden under the ground. This place is located in Vostok. In the underworld of Antarctica, the scale of jewels on the crown. Lake Ontario in North America to be able to imagine. Then place a 2.5-kilometer thick ice roof on top of it. It is about 240 kilometers long and 50 kilometers wide. It is a giant body of water that has been around the rest of the planet for at least 15 million years. I am completely isolated of the situation. The lake exists in constant and overwhelming darkness. The pressure on the water surface is over 350 atmospheres. This is powerful enough to crush even a nuclear submarine like a tin can. Despite this, water frost. The immense pressure of the ice above it and the gentle geothermal heat of the Earth rising from below. Stay liquid thanks to the temperature of physics. This is almost a thermal blanket effect. Ice acts as a perfect insulator, trapping the planet's internal heat within the water. And it makes him just above freezing with an extremely sensitive but persistent one. This absolute isolated of the Vostok Lake. It has created a unique chemical environment in the world, slow over the glacial lake. As it slowly moves forward, the lower layers of ice melt and new water is added to the system. However, this ice also carries air bubbles that were trapped millions of years ago. When the ice thaws, this ancient air is released into the lake. However, the lake is completely under high pressure. The gas cannot escape but instead dissolves in water for millions of years. This year-round process gradually filled the lake with gas. Scientists say that the water of Lake Vostok is extremely saturated with oxygen. Perhaps 50 times more than an ordinary freshwater lake is suitable. It predicts that oxygen is necessary for life under normal conditions. However, at such high concentrations, oxygen turns into a toxic chemical substance. Vostok elements are not only dark and cold. A chemical pressure overloaded with oxygen acquires any that may exist there. A way of life has adapted to conditions that would kill an ordinary fish or crab. It is obligatory to provide it. Despite this, life is resilient as scientists drill into the lake. Ice by stopping just before drilling into the lake to prevent parken contamination. They extracted accumulation ice formed from frozen lake water under the glacier as an example. They came across traces of DNA in this ice in the cold and darkness. He found signs of the presence of bacteria, which are extreme elephants that survive. Some of these are thermophiles, which are the cause of their hot hydrothermal vents on the lake floor. Feed on minerals instead of sunlight that you live in clusters around you. However, even more surprising findings emerged. Some DNA sequences are involved in multicellular organisms, fungi, and even the crustacean suggests more complex forms of life. Even a genetic trace was detected that is extremely similar to a parasite found in ancestral fish. This has raised a crazy and highly controversial theory. I wonder if there could be fish there, the surface of Vostok in its eternal darkness. Could it be that the blind and white fish, protected from the raging ice ages, were swimming silently? We don't know that. The lake has been opened only by our imagination for now. Wait for a camera to sneak in and unearth the ghosts he has been hiding. A sealed biosphere waiting for the meaning of the world in the Lake Vostok. It is not intended to understand, it is also a rehearsal for life in space. It is a trial process for Jupiter when we look at the solar system. We see Europa orbiting it and Angela orbiting Saturn. These ice worlds are under thick frozen crusts. They harbor huge saltwater oceans that are kept in liquid form thanks to tidal heating. These satellites are the exact equivalent of Lake Vostok on a planetary scale. If life is completely removed from the sun for millions of years. Foam cold, dark, high pressure and oxygen hungry. If it can exist in rich Vostok waters, so can Europa. Vostok is our proxy that we have on our own planet. An alien is the closest example to the ocean, every new discovery made in the darkness of Antarctica. It brings us one step closer to the question of whether we are alone in the universe. The South's ice is like a telescope turned to the possibilities of trump cards. Antarctica is a geography full of contradictions, but none of them are Mount Erebus. It is not as visually stunning as the area where the mountain of Ross is frozen over. The Dalmu is the southernmost active volcano in the world, rising about 4 kilometers from the sea. Standing in the middle of this ice kingdom is a fire sentinel Erebus. What is eruption continuously for at least 1.5 million years? It is not a sleeping mountain. It is a living system. At its peak it is encountered only at a few points on Earth. Find an extremely rare geological phenomenon. Boil non-stop. The landscape is surreal, revealing a permanent lava lake. Crater in front of the eye-catching whiteness of the glaciers and the deep blue of the polar sky. Columns of steam and sulfurous gases rise continuously. At night, in months of absolute winter darkness, the peak glows a menacing redness. It shines and illuminates the bottom of the clouds of steam. This is deep in the world. A passage that opens to its depths. The town is rich in fragments of phonolite, a rare type of molten rock, consisting of lava. At -50 degrees around a boiling cauldron at a temperature of 1000 degrees. It is completely surrounded by frozen ice. However, the real miracle of Erebus 10 is hidden on the slopes, not at the summit of the volcano. The heat leaking into the man doesn't just mix with the air, it travels through the rocks and meets the ice. This contact reveals ghostly structures called cougar rolls. Ice towers rising up to 10 meters that spew steam into the polar air. But beneath these towers, the heat has slept into a hidden world. Complex caves were formed that melted directly into it. Stepping into the caves of Erebus is like entering a dreamland. The walls are translucent, glowing with soft light filtering through the surface. Blue ice consists of ground with hot rocks most of the time, or cover it with soft volcanic sand. The air is filled with a dense vapor that is protected from the fierce katabatic winds that blow a few feet above. This area has a humid and foggy atmosphere. It is a secret shelter shaped by the breath of the volcano, and the temperature difference inside these caves is the temperature difference. It is truly astonishing that the wind creates outside on the slopes of the mountain. The freezing cold it created froze the exposed skin in minutes. It can make it deep in the thermal pockets inside the caves. The temperature rises up to 25 degrees. When you stand in the dark and hot environment and listen to the drops of melting ice and the hiss of escaping steam, it completely forgets where you are. You are not in a freezer of a sauna thermal balance. It has existed for hundreds of thousands of years and is the whole of the rest of the continent. Create a possible habitat isolated by its direction. Life is not at peace with emptiness, as we can see. Heat and water are almost. Antarctica follows there in biology and continues to maintain its mystery. It is a vast continent that continues and at the same time a completely different trip from the world. It is a planet. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like.